Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm super excited for today's topic. Today we're going to be talking about crowdfunding. But before we get into it, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe for more monthly videos in support of my fellow indie artists. Alright guys, so we have a lot to get into today. Today we're going to be talking about how I successfully crowdfunded my sophomore album, but I also want to talk about grant funding. Don't worry, they're going to tie together very nicely, but bear with me, I've got my cheat sheet today. I normally try to memorize everything, but there's just so much information I want to make sure I get out. This is like the #1 question you guys asked in my inbox. How did we crowdfund? How did you get grants? All of that stuff. So I want to make sure I don't miss any of the points. So bear with me because I'm going to be going from here to there, from here to here. Alright guys, so before I get into how I successfully crowdfunded my sophomore album, I have to be completely transparent with you guys and let you know that before I successfully crowdfunded my album, I had a number of failed campaigns. So it's really true what they say, success is persevering through a culmination of failures. And so today when we talk about crowdfunding, I'm actually going to share with you how I learned how to do a successful crowdfund campaign. Before I actually had a successful one, I learned a number of ways not to do it. So hopefully you can learn from my mistakes. One of the first things I did was I launched on Kickstarter. That was the first campaign of all the campaigns. Campaigns on Kickstarter are all or nothing, so you have to reach your goal. And while we did raise a few thousand on and offline, I did not reach my campaign goal. And so one of the supporters in the campaign hopped in and suggested we move the campaign from Kickstarter to a site called Indiegogo. And I had never heard of Indiegogo, but I learned that that was a site where you could set the campaign to flex funding, meaning whether you reach your goal or not, you get those pledges. And so we moved the campaign, the failed campaign, from Kickstarter to Indiegogo, and we were able to raise, again, a few $1,000s, this time actual money that I could deduct and put towards the project. And I was able to put together a 4-song project that sent me well on my way. So you can do an all or nothing campaign, either or, but I have learned through just my experience and research that statistically all or nothing campaigns tend to be more successful because people want to see you reach that goal. So this leads me to my first crowdfunding tip for life in general, really, but crowdfunding for the sake of this, which is going to be, don't expect people to invest in your campaign or career in general if you have not invested in it yourself. I watch a lot of Shark Tank. I love Shark Tank. It's like a show that me and my husband love binging on. And one of the first questions that the sharks ask, the two primary ones are, how are your sales looking? So basically they want to know your track record. And how much have you invested in it yourself? How much of the funds in the business came from you? What did you use to start it? And it's very similar in crowdfunding. While people supporting your project aren't sharks, they are people that you're essentially asking to invest in you and your dreams. And so you want to make sure that you invest in yourself too. That first campaign that failed, I did not have a professional ask video. I did not have any content or any track record or any evidence that I even really did anything musical at all. I wanted people to just take a chance with me. And there were people that did, and I don't regret doing it, but I didn't reach my goal, and it did wound me, but it helped prepare me and gear up for the next campaign. Before we move on, I do want to go back and say that another issue with crowdfunding so early in my journey was that you have to deliver that item, that product, that thing that you said you were going to give. And when it comes to being a new artist, I was still figuring out my sound and my identity as a creative. And honestly, while it wasn't terrible, it was a project that I would have preferred to shelve if I could have. And that's one of the perks of funding something yourself, or even with a label, sometimes they choose to shelve an artist project if they don't think it's going to be too successful. And so it's getting really businessy and logic-y and things like that, but you have to deliver that project, and you don't want to lose the trust of the people who did take a risk on you. So launching so early in my journey, I had to put out content that I did not feel like I was too excited about making my debut with. But what it did do is put a huge fire up under my butt to get another project out as soon as possible, and I did. And that was a single that I wrote called Manna. if you're in Manna. I was much happier with Manna. And so let's get into the next campaign. So the following year I had a full body of songs that I was really excited about, songs to pick and choose from, and I really wanted to put out my first full-length album. I like to think, for me, I think of my EPs as more like experimenting and taking a chance, trying something new. For me, full-length albums are, boom, this is who I am. I'm committed, because you're investing more funds and more creativity and all types of things into it. And so I was ready and itching to do my first full-length album, but that meant it would cost more money, it would take more time, and I would need to crowdfund. So this time, while I was still a little wounded from the last campaign not reaching its goal, I was ready to go and give it another go, a stronger effort. We put some time and money into a Better Ask video. I set up shows all around town to get the word out and let people know about the campaign. We did, I went out on the street and started playing on the street while my friend passed out flyers, which actually did bring in some really good support for the campaign and fans that keep in touch to this day. I was in everybody's DM and inbox, which leads me to the next campaign goal, which is you can't just put the campaign up and expect magical money to just completely fall into it. As music artists, there's so many music artists. You have to go and promote. You have to let people know that it exists. Unless you're Beyonce, then you could just put it up and it works for you. Beyonce can do anything. But until we get to that place, you have to be intentional about letting people know about it. And that was something that I was more timid about the last time around. I wasn't really, I don't want to say aggressive, but I was definitely very passive about the campaign. That's tip number 2. You have to let people know that it exists. You cannot just put it up there and expect the campaign to take care of itself. It's called a campaign. It's a campaign. The same way that politicians go out and campaign for votes, you'll have to go out and campaign for pledges. You'll have to let people know that it exists. So I did a lot of this, guys, and again, I did not reach my goal. And I set it as a flex fund campaign, so I was able to use those funds to get together a full-length, more like acoustic project. But I did not reach the goal, and so I vowed to never crowdfund again. After that, I was just like, crowdfunding me, we don't go together. I'm not doing any more crowdfunding. I was just so over it. Glad that I could get something together, but really just, it was exhausting, and I went so hard at it that time. So I thought, I'm not doing that again. So then about 2 years went by, seriously y'all, 2 years, and in that time I did get the itch to record again, but again I vowed to never crowdfund again. So I had a co-investor, someone who covered the production costs, kind of like a executive producer, covered the production costs, and I covered the post-production costs, and I was able to get out an EP, and then I later funded another EP. Guys, I was just really tore up, and I vowed to never crowdfund again. I went on tour to take one of those EPs on tour, and I met some producers that I really dug. I was really liking their band. They were a band, but they also produced, and I wanted them to produce my next full-length project. I was like, it's time. I have these songs, I want to do a full-length. And the quote that they gave me was a high quote. So a whole another year went by, and I got the itch to record again. And you guys, I got the same exact quote from someone else, which sounds really simple, but this to me was a sign that I needed to face my fears and go through this situation, which was that I needed to face the fact that I needed to face my fears. So I got my Rocky Balboa on, and this time I was ready to go. I prepared, I researched. I really went into a season of preparation for months prior to launching because I wanted to figure out what I had been doing wrong in the past. And this is when I learned a number of things that helped me to launch a successful campaign. One of the things I learned was that the time of year you launch is important. I learned the time of month that you launch is important. The time of week, so many things, they matter, and I did not realize that. The length of campaign matters. So I learned that 4-week campaigns tend to be the most successful. I also learned that all or nothing campaigns tend to be the most successful. Up until then, every campaign I did was an 8-week flex funding campaign, which is literally the complete opposite of what research says is most successful. So I learned I was doing a number of things wrong that I now share with people that reach out to me on tips. 4-week campaigns, and all or nothing. You gotta go hard or you gotta go home. So this successful campaign was done through pledge music, and while I don't specifically endorse pledge music or attribute them to the success of the campaign, I will say there were a number of things that I learned during that process that actually worked in my favor. There were a ton of wonky things that did not go as planned, and it actually helped my little type A self. If you know me specifically, you know I'm a planner, an organizer. I love to do things by the books, and a lot of things for this campaign did not happen that way. I tend to plan and get in the way, so I had to get out of the way, and once I did, things really started to unfold. One of the biggest things I learned that I did need to control, while there were a lot of things outside of my control during that campaign, the one thing I did need to control was my thought process and my belief system. And that sounds a little wonky and spiritual and all those things, and it is, because it's so important. What you believe about yourself is what happens. And I saw a number of campaigns succeed over the years that I realized had everything to do with the person's belief system. And so I had to wake up every day saying, I cannot lose. I cannot lose. I had to keep people away who wanted to speak negative or bring bad vibes. Oh, I thought your campaign would be farther by now, or oh, I thought, don't have time for it. I stayed on the path of believing that we would reach the goal. I signed every update email. We will reach the goal, casting that vision. And I really do believe that helped attribute to this campaign. In the past, I dressed up my fears as false humility and kind of presented everything as I'm scared, and you get pity donations that way, but you can't really exceed and reach your goals, which we exceeded the campaign goal this time. You can't reach them trying to get pity pledges and being fearful. You have to go in confident. You have to go in believing and getting rid of negative thoughts. Was it easy? No, especially when I had a ton of failed campaigns in the past. But this really helps. So one cool thing is, circling back to the grant funding, is that during the time of this campaign, while I was in the middle of campaigning for the album, I got 2 or 3 grants. And while that grant funding wasn't for the album, it was for other things, I learned also how to apply for grants. So I want to talk to you guys about that, because maybe that's a method for you. Hey guys, we are out of time and camera space for today's episode. If you enjoyed it, make sure to give it a thumbs up so we know that you want to see a part 2 on grant funding. Also, I forgot to mention Amanda Palmer. She is the queen of crowdfunding. She helped me and encouraged me during that time. I don't know her personally, but her book helped me and encouraged me during that time when I had given up on crowdfunding. The book is called The Art of Asking, so I advise you to check it out. It not only helped me prepare for the next and successful campaign we talked about today, but also for my Patreon account. So if you want to support and become a monthly supporter, make sure you go and check it out. See you soon.